In the final weeks of World War II, as the Nazi Empire collapsed and Soviet armies pushed toward Berlin, a heavily guarded train left a railway station in the German city of Breslau. The train carried no passengers, no wounded soldiers, no refugees. Instead, it carried something far more valuable. Crates filled with gold, boxes containing rare diamonds, priceless paintings stolen from European museums, and, according to some witnesses, secret documents and experimental technology that Nazi leaders were desperate to hide. The train departed late at night. Its destination was classified, its cargo was sealed, and after it left the station, it disappeared. For nearly 80 years, historians, treasure hunters, and governments have searched for this mysterious train. Some believe it is hidden deep inside underground tunnels. Others believe it was destroyed during the chaos of the war's final days. But the legend continues to fascinate the world, because if the stories are true, the train may still contain one of the largest hidden treasures in history. Please subscribe my channel for more historical videos. For your subscribe, I will pray to God you will be in heaven. Now come to the history, the collapse of Nazi Germany. By early 1945, the Third Reich was falling apart. The once unstoppable German war machine was now fighting a desperate defensive battle on all fronts. To the east, the Soviet Red Army had already crossed into German territory. Cities across Eastern Europe were being captured one by one. Entire German divisions were retreating, were surrendering. To the west, American and British forces were advancing across the Rhine River. Germany was surrounded. Air raids destroyed factories and railway networks. Food supplies were running out. Millions of civilians were fleeing their homes. Even high-ranking Nazi officials privately admitted that the war was lost. But despite the collapse of the German military, one priority remained extremely important to Nazi leaders: protect the wealth of the Third Reich. The looting of Europe. During the war, Nazi Germany had stolen enormous amounts of wealth from the countries it occupied. Gold reserves were taken from national banks. Jewelry was seized from civilians. Museums were stripped of priceless paintings and sculptures. Entire art collections were transported to Germany. Adolf Hitler himself had ambitious plans for these treasures. He intended to build a massive museum in the Austrian city of Linz after the war. The museum would display the greatest art collection in the world. To create this collection, Nazi forces looted thousands of artworks from across Europe. But as Allied forces advanced, the Nazis realized they could no longer keep these treasures in their original locations. They began hiding them. Some were placed in salt mines, others were stored in underground bunkers, and in some cases they were transported by train to secret locations. Breslau, the fortress city. One of the most important locations during the final months of the war was the German city of Breslau, located in what is now western Poland. In 1945, Breslau had been declared a Festung, or fortress city. This meant the city was ordered to defend itself at all costs. German forces were instructed not to surrender. Instead, they were to fight until the last possible moment. The city quickly became surrounded by Soviet troops. Bombardments destroyed buildings and infrastructure. Food shortages became severe. Yet, even as the siege continued, mysterious railway activity was reported in the area. Several trains carrying unknown cargo left the city during the final weeks of the war. One of these trains would later become the center of an enduring mystery. The armored train. Witnesses later described a long armored train leaving Breslau in early 1945. Unlike ordinary trains, this one was heavily guarded.
German soldiers secured the railway station before the train's departure. Civilians were ordered to stay away. Workers who helped load the train later described seeing dozens of sealed wooden crates. The crates were extremely heavy. Some required several men to move. Others were loaded using cranes. No labels indicated what was inside, but rumors spread quickly. Many workers believed the crates contained gold bars and valuables taken from banks and museums. Others claimed they saw containers filled with rare paintings and sculptures. The train was then sealed. Its destination was never officially recorded, and shortly after leaving Breslau, it vanished.
The mountains of Lower Silesia. The last known direction of the train led toward the mountainous region of Lower Silesia. This area was filled with forests, hills, and underground tunnels. During the war, the Nazis had built a vast network of secret facilities in these mountains. The most mysterious of these projects was known as Project Riese, meaning Project Giant. Project Riese involved the construction of enormous underground complexes. Thousands of forced laborers had carved tunnels deep into the mountains. Some tunnels were large enough to fit entire factories. Others connected hidden bunkers and command centers. Historians still debate the exact purpose of these underground structures. Some believe they were intended to become a new headquarters for the Nazi leadership. Others believe they were meant for secret weapons research. What is certain is that the region contained miles of unexplored tunnels. And if a train needed to disappear, this would have been the perfect place to hide it. The war ends. In May 1945, Nazi Germany officially surrendered. The Third Reich collapsed. Cities were divided among Allied occupation zones. Breslau became part of Poland and was renamed Wrocław. German residents were forced to leave the area. New Polish communities moved into the region. But as the chaos of the war settled, stories began circulating among local residents. Stories about a train that entered the mountains and never returned. Some claimed it had been hidden inside a secret tunnel. Others believed the entrance had been sealed with explosives. If the train existed, it could still be buried deep underground. A mystery begins. In the decades after the war, treasure hunters began searching the mountains of Lower Silesia. Many believed the train contained unimaginable wealth. Gold from banks, jewels from royal collections, masterpieces stolen from Europe's greatest museums. Some even believed the train might contain secret Nazi weapons research. Despite many investigations, no confirmed discovery was made. But the legend never disappeared. Because somewhere beneath the forests and mountains of Poland, historians believe there may still be secrets waiting to be uncovered. And if the Nazi gold train truly exists, it could be one of the greatest hidden treasures in history.
Part 2. The Secret Tunnels of Project Riese. When the Second World War finally ended in 1945, large parts of Central Europe were left in ruins. Cities were destroyed, borders were redrawn, and millions of people were displaced. But among the devastation of post-war Europe, one region stood out for its mystery. The mountains of Lower Silesia, located in what is now southwestern Poland, contained something unusual. Hidden beneath the forests and hills were enormous underground tunnel systems. Some were unfinished, others were sealed, and many of them had been built in total secrecy during the final years of Nazi Germany. This network of tunnels was known as Project Riese. The word Riese means giant, and the project truly lived up to its name. The largest secret construction project of the Third Reich. Project Riese began in 1943, when Nazi Germany was already starting to lose the war. Allied bombers were destroying factories across Germany. Military production was being disrupted. German leaders feared that important weapons programs and military command centers might be destroyed from the air. So they decided to move some of these operations underground. Deep inside the mountains of Lower Silesia, engineers began constructing a massive system of tunnels and bunkers. These tunnels stretched for kilometers beneath the rock. Some were large enough to contain factories. Others were designed as hidden military headquarters. Several enormous chambers were carved directly into the mountains. Concrete walls were poured. Steel supports were installed. Railway tracks were laid inside certain tunnels. The scale of the project was extraordinary. Even today, historians are still discovering new sections of the underground complex. The dark side of construction. But the construction of Project Riese came at a terrible human cost. The tunnels were built using forced labor. Thousands of prisoners from nearby concentration camps were transported into the mountains. Many of these prisoners came from the Gross Rosen concentration camp, which had a network of smaller labor camps in the region. The prisoners were forced to dig tunnels using basic tools. They worked long hours in dangerous conditions. Food was scarce. Medical care was almost non-existent. Many prisoners died from exhaustion, disease, or abuse. Historians estimate that thousands of forced laborers lost their lives during the construction of Project Riese. Despite the massive effort, the project was never fully completed. By the time the tunnels were nearing completion, the war situation had become desperate. Soviet armies were advancing toward Germany. Time was running out. What were the tunnels for? Even today, historians debate the true purpose of Project Riese. One theory suggests the tunnels were meant to become a new headquarters for Adolf Hitler. As Allied bombers destroyed German cities, Nazi leaders wanted secure underground command centers. The mountains of Lower Silesia would have provided natural protection from air attacks. Another theory suggests the tunnels were intended for secret weapons development. During the final years of the war, Nazi scientists were working on advanced technologies. These included jet aircraft, rocket weapons, and experimental military devices. Some historians believe the tunnels were meant to house secret laboratories and factories. There is also evidence that some tunnels were connected to underground railway systems. This detail would later become very important in the mystery of the missing train.
The end of the project. As Soviet forces pushed deeper into German territory in early 1945, Project Riese was suddenly abandoned. Construction stopped. Engineers fled. Military units retreated westward. Some entrances to the tunnels were destroyed. Others were sealed. Documents related to the project were lost or destroyed. When Soviet troops finally captured the region, they discovered parts of the underground complex, but much of it remained unexplored. Even today, large sections of Project Riese are still hidden beneath the mountains. And this is where the legend of the Nazi gold train begins to merge with the story of these tunnels. The last sightings of the train. According to witnesses from the final weeks of the war, the mysterious train leaving Breslau did not travel far across open territory. Instead, it was believed to head directly toward the mountain region where Project Riese was located. Local railway workers later claimed they saw a heavily guarded train entering a tunnel in the mountains. The train never emerged again. Soon afterward, explosions were reportedly heard in the area. Some believed the tunnel entrance was intentionally collapsed to hide whatever was inside. If the stories are true, the train and everything it carried could still be buried inside one of those tunnels, hidden behind collapsed rock and concrete, protected by decades of secrecy. The treasure rumors. Over time, rumors about the train's cargo became more dramatic.
Some stories claimed the train carried tons of Nazi gold taken from banks across Europe. Others said it contained rare artwork stolen from museums. A few theories even suggested the train carried secret weapons prototypes or classified military research. If any of these stories were true, the train could contain one of the most valuable wartime treasures ever hidden. But finding it would not be easy. The mountains of Lower Silesia contain hundreds of tunnels, caves, and abandoned mining shafts. Many have never been fully explored. Some are dangerous or flooded. Others may be completely collapsed. Some experts believe the train might never be found, but others remain convinced that the secret is still buried somewhere beneath those mountains, waiting. A mystery waiting to be solved. For decades after the war, the legend of the Nazi gold train remained little more than a local rumor. Treasure hunters occasionally searched the mountains, but no major discoveries were made. Then, many years later, the mystery suddenly returned to global attention. In the year 2015, two treasure hunters made a dramatic announcement. They claimed they had finally found the location of the lost train. Their discovery would trigger one of the most famous treasure hunts in modern history, and it would bring the legend of the Nazi gold train back into the headlines around the world.
Part 3. The discovery that shocked the world. For decades after World War II, the legend of the Nazi gold train remained mostly a regional mystery. Older residents of Lower Silesia would occasionally tell stories about a train filled with treasure that had vanished into the mountains. Treasure hunters sometimes searched the forests and tunnels, but historians generally dismissed the story as a myth. Many believed it was nothing more than a wartime rumor that had grown larger over time. Then, in 2015, something unexpected happened. Two men came forward with a claim that would shock historians and capture global headlines. They believed they had found the train. The two treasure hunters. The two men were Andreas Richter, a German treasure hunter, and Piotr Koper, a Polish explorer. Both had spent years investigating underground tunnels and wartime secrets in Lower Silesia. The region had always fascinated them. It was filled with abandoned mines, hidden bunkers, and unexplored tunnels left behind from the war. In 2015, the two men began studying old railway maps and historical records. They also spoke with local residents who remembered wartime stories passed down through generations. Eventually, they focused their attention on a specific area near the Polish city of Walbrik. According to rumors, a heavily armored train had entered a tunnel near this location during the final weeks of the war, and after entering the tunnel, it was never seen again. The radar scans. To investigate the site, the two men used ground-penetrating radar, a technology capable of detecting objects buried underground. Ground-penetrating radar sends signals into the earth and records reflections from objects below the surface. This technology is often used by archaeologists and engineers to locate buried structures. When Richter and Koper scanned the hillside near the railway line, the radar results revealed something unusual. Beneath the ground appeared to be a long metallic shape. The object measured roughly 100 meters in length. That was about the size of a large train. The images appeared to show several connected compartments. To the two treasure hunters, the conclusion seemed obvious. They believed they had found the legendary Nazi gold train. The announcement. In August 2015, the two men contacted Polish authorities. They reported their discovery and requested permission to excavate the site. News of their claim quickly leaked to the media.
Within days, newspapers and television networks across the world were reporting the story. The legend of the Nazi gold train had suddenly become an international sensation. Journalists traveled to the quiet Polish town of Walbrecht. Television cameras filmed the wooded hillside where the train was believed to be buried. Speculation spread rapidly. What exactly was inside the train? Some historians believed it might contain gold bars and jewelry stolen by the Nazis. Others suggested it might hold valuable artwork looted from museums across Europe. A few even wondered if the train might contain secret weapons research or classified military technology. If the train existed, its cargo could be worth billions of dollars.
The government steps in. Because of the enormous potential value of the discovery, the Polish government quickly became involved. Officials from the Ministry of Culture announced that the site would be investigated carefully. Military engineers were sent to examine the area. Experts warned that the site might contain unexploded wartime explosives or dangerous materials. The Polish army began scanning the hillside for mines and booby traps. At the same time, historians and archaeologists were called in to study the evidence. Everyone wanted to know whether the legendary train truly existed. Global fascination. The story captured the imagination of people around the world. For many, the mystery seemed like something from an adventure film. A hidden train filled with Nazi treasure buried beneath a mountain. Television documentaries were produced about the search. Treasure hunters from different countries traveled to Poland hoping to join the expedition. Some historians remained skeptical. They pointed out that many wartime legends had turned out to be false, but others believed the possibility could not be ignored. After all, Nazi Germany had hidden enormous quantities of treasure during the war. Many of those treasures had never been recovered. The excavation begins. Eventually, authorities allowed limited excavation to begin. Heavy machinery was brought to the site. Engineers started digging through layers of soil and rock. The entire world watched as the search progressed. If the train were discovered, it would be one of the greatest archaeological discoveries related to World War II. Days turned into weeks. The excavation continued deeper into the hillside. But as the digging progressed, doubts began to grow. The radar image that had appeared to show a train was becoming less clear. Some experts suggested the signal might have been caused by natural rock formations. Others believed it might have been a buried tunnel rather than a train. Still, the search continued. Everyone hoped that the legendary train might finally be revealed. The unexpected result. After months of investigation, the excavation reached the depth where the radar had indicated the object should be located, but there was no train, no railway carriages, no treasure, only rock and soil. The discovery was disappointing. The radar images had apparently been misinterpreted. The object detected underground was not a train after all. For many observers, this seemed to be the end of the mystery, but not everyone was convinced. Some historians believe the search may have been conducted in the wrong location. Others believe that if the train existed, it might still be hidden deeper within the mountains, because the tunnels of Project Riese remain only partially explored, and the mountains of Lower Silesia still contain many secrets. The legend continues. Today, the legend of the Nazi gold train remains unsolved. Despite modern technology and extensive searches, no confirmed evidence of the train has ever been discovered. Yet the mystery refuses to disappear. Treasure hunters continue exploring the region. Historians continue studying wartime records, and new technologies may someday reveal what lies hidden beneath the mountains. Because if the train truly exists, it may still be waiting in darkness beneath the earth, filled with the stolen treasures of a fallen empire.
Part 4. The Hidden Treasures of the Third Reich. When Allied forces pushed into Germany in the final months of World War II, they expected to find destroyed cities, abandoned military equipment, and exhausted soldiers. But they also discovered something else. Hidden across Europe were enormous caches of treasure. Gold bars stacked in underground vaults, paintings hidden deep inside mines, jewelry packed into crates, entire collections from museums that had simply vanished during the war. The Nazis had not only fought a war of conquest, they had also conducted one of the largest organized theft operations in history. And the deeper investigators looked, the more disturbing the truth became. The systematic looting of Europe. From the moment Nazi Germany began occupying territories across Europe, special units were created to seize valuables. One of the most infamous organizations involved in this operation was known as the Einsatzstab Reichsleiter Rosenberg, often shortened to ERR. This organization was responsible for identifying valuable artwork and cultural treasures in occupied territories. Museums, private collections, libraries, and even churches were targeted. Artworks by masters such as Rembrandt, Vermeer, and Michelangelo were confiscated. Entire museum collections were removed and transported to Germany. Jewelry and gold were seized from civilians. Banks were forced to surrender their reserves. By the end of the war, the Nazis had stolen hundreds of thousands of artworks and vast quantities of precious metals. Much of this wealth disappeared as the Third Reich collapsed. Hitler's Dream Museum. Adolf Hitler himself had a particular obsession with art. He had once dreamed of becoming a painter. Although he failed as an artist, his fascination with art never disappeared. During the war, Hitler began planning the construction of a massive museum in his hometown of Linz, Austria. The museum would contain what he believed would be the greatest art collection in the world. To build this collection, Nazi agents searched across Europe for valuable paintings and sculptures. Works of art were taken from museums and private collections. Many Jewish families lost their priceless cultural heritage as their homes were confiscated. Thousands of artworks were sent to secret storage facilities while the war continued. But as Germany began losing the war, the Nazis realized these treasures might soon fall into Allied hands, so they began hiding them. The salt mines. One of the most famous discoveries occurred in 1945 when Allied soldiers entered the Altaussee salt mine in Austria. Deep inside the mountain, they found something extraordinary. Hidden within the tunnels were thousands of stolen artworks. Paintings by some of the greatest artists in history were stacked inside wooden crates. Among the treasures were works by Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, and Vermeer. The salt mine had become a massive underground storage facility for stolen art. The discovery shocked investigators. It revealed just how extensive the Nazi looting operation had been. But it also raised another question. If so much treasure had been hidden in the mines, how much had already been moved elsewhere? Missing gold. Another mystery involved the enormous gold reserves that the Nazis had accumulated during the war. Some of this gold had been taken from central banks in occupied countries. Other gold came from confiscated valuables. As Allied armies advanced into Germany, Nazi officials rushed to move these reserves. Large shipments of gold were transported by train. Some were hidden in underground vaults. Others were sent to remote locations in the Alps. In the chaotic final weeks of the war, records of these transfers were often destroyed. As a result, historians still cannot fully account for all the gold that disappeared during this time. And this is why the story of the missing train remains so intriguing,
because it is entirely possible that one of those trains carried a large portion of the missing treasure. The chaos of the final days. By the spring of 1945, Germany was collapsing rapidly. Communication between military units was breaking down. Railway networks were damaged by bombing. Government officials were fleeing cities. In this chaos, many secret operations were carried out without proper documentation. Some trains were sent on emergency missions. Others were loaded with unknown cargo and sent to remote locations. In some cases, the crews themselves did not know what they were transporting. The train that allegedly left Breslau may have been one of these last, desperate operations, a final attempt by Nazi leaders to hide valuable assets before the end of the war. The perfect hiding place. The mountains of Lower Silesia would have been an ideal location for hiding such a train. The region was already filled with underground tunnels from Project Riese. Railway tracks ran close to the mountains. Some tunnels were large enough to hide entire trains. If the train had been driven into a tunnel and the entrance collapsed afterward, it could remain hidden indefinitely, especially if the location was kept secret by the few people who knew about it. And if those people never survived the war, the secret would disappear with them. The unanswered question. Today, historians continue to debate whether the Nazi gold train truly existed. Some believe the story is simply a legend that grew over time. Others believe the evidence is strong enough to suggest that something was indeed hidden in the mountains. The truth may still lie somewhere beneath the forests of Lower Silesia, behind collapsed tunnels, buried beneath layers of rock. Because if even a small part of the story is true, the train could still contain one of the greatest hidden treasures in history. And the mystery of the missing train would remain one of the most fascinating secrets of World War II.
Part 5. The Secret Searches After the War. When World War II ended in 1945, the region of Lower Silesia was left in a strange and uncertain situation. The borders of Europe had changed dramatically. Territories that had once belonged to Germany were now transferred to Poland. German populations were forced to leave their homes. New Polish settlers arrived to rebuild cities and villages destroyed by war. In the middle of all this chaos, the mountains and forests of Lower Silesia remained filled with hidden tunnels, abandoned bunkers, and mysterious wartime structures. And somewhere within these mountains, according to legend, a train loaded with treasure had vanished. But the search for that train did not begin with modern treasure hunters. In fact, the first people who may have searched for it were the Soviet military. The Soviet occupation. After Germany's surrender, Soviet forces took control of large areas of Eastern Europe. The Red Army had advanced across Poland and captured many former German territories. Lower Silesia was one of those regions. Soviet engineers and military units began investigating the underground complexes left behind by Nazi Germany. They were particularly interested in Project Riese, the enormous network of tunnels hidden beneath the mountains. These tunnels represented a potential military asset. They might contain secret laboratories, weapons factories, or hidden technology. Some reports suggest Soviet soldiers spent months exploring sections of the underground complex. However, much of what they discovered was never publicly documented. During the early years of the Cold War, secrecy was common. Military information was often classified. Records were hidden inside government archives. This secrecy only added to the mystery surrounding the region. Rumors of Soviet discoveries. Over the years, rumors began circulating among local residents.
Some claimed Soviet soldiers had discovered hidden vaults containing gold and valuables. Others believed Soviet authorities secretly removed treasure from the tunnels and transported it back to the Soviet Union. There were even stories that entire sections of the underground complex had been sealed off after important discoveries were made. But because official records were rarely released, these rumors were difficult to verify. Historians today still debate how much the Soviet military actually found in the region. What is certain is that many underground areas remained unexplored. And if a train had been hidden deep inside a sealed tunnel, it might easily have escaped detection. The Cold War silence. During the decades of the Cold War, Poland was part of the Soviet sphere of influence. Government authorities discouraged treasure hunting or unauthorized exploration of underground sites. Many tunnels were considered dangerous or unstable. Some areas were closed for safety reasons. As a result, the legend of the missing train remained mostly a local story. Older residents occasionally shared tales about wartime trains and hidden treasure, but official investigations were rare. For nearly half a century, the mystery remained largely forgotten by the outside world.
The fall of communism. Everything changed in 1989 when communist governments across Eastern Europe began to collapse. Poland transitioned to a democratic government. Borders opened. Historical archives slowly became accessible. Researchers gained the freedom to investigate wartime secrets that had previously been hidden. Suddenly, historians and explorers began re-examining the mysteries of Lower Silesia. The underground tunnels of Project Riese attracted new attention. Archaeologists, historians, and amateur explorers started mapping sections of the tunnels. Some areas that had been sealed for decades were finally reopened. Each new discovery raised more questions about what might still be hidden beneath the mountains. New technology, new possibilities. By the early 2000s, technology had advanced dramatically. Scientists and engineers now had tools capable of detecting objects buried deep underground. Ground-penetrating radar, satellite imaging, and advanced geological scanning made it possible to search areas that had once been impossible to explore. Treasure hunters began using these technologies to investigate wartime rumors. Lower Silesia once again became a center of attention. The legend of the Nazi gold train returned. People began asking the same question that had puzzled historians for decades. What if the train was real? What if it had truly been hidden somewhere in the mountains? And what if modern technology could finally reveal its location? The story returns to the world. By the early 2010s, interest in the mystery had grown significantly. Documentaries about wartime treasure began appearing on television. Historians published books examining Nazi looting operations. Researchers studied the underground tunnel systems of Project Riese in greater detail. Then, in 2015, the announcement from the two treasure hunters, Piotr Koper and Andreas Richter, brought the legend back into the global spotlight. Their radar scans suggested that a long metallic object might be buried beneath a hillside near Wałbrzych. The possibility that the legendary train had finally been found captured the imagination of millions. And suddenly, the quiet forests of Lower Silesia became the center of one of the most famous treasure hunts in modern history. The mystery continues. Even after the excavation failed to reveal the train, the mystery remained unresolved. Many historians believe the search area may have been incorrect. Others suspect the train might be hidden deeper within the mountains. Because the tunnels of Project Riese are still far from fully explored. New sections continue to be discovered even today. And if the train truly exists, it may still be waiting somewhere in darkness beneath the earth.
Part 6.
The theories behind the missing train. Even after decades of research, excavation, and investigation, the mystery of the Nazi gold train remains unsolved. Historians, archaeologists, engineers, and treasure hunters have all studied the evidence, but no one has been able to prove exactly what happened to the train that reportedly left Breslau in 1945. Because of this uncertainty, several different theories have emerged. Some of these theories are based on historical documents, others rely on eyewitness testimony, and a few are built mostly on speculation and legend. Yet each theory attempts to answer the same question: where did the train go? Theory 1. The train was hidden in a sealed tunnel. The most popular theory suggests that the train was deliberately hidden inside one of the tunnels connected to Project Riese. According to this idea, the train traveled from Breslau toward the mountainous region of Lower Silesia. Once it reached a hidden tunnel entrance, the train entered the underground complex. After the train was safely inside, engineers collapsed the tunnel entrance using explosives. This would have permanently sealed the train inside the mounter. If this theory is correct, the train could still exist today. It would be buried behind layers of collapsed rock and concrete. Some tunnels in the region are already known to have been intentionally destroyed during the final days of the war. German forces may have sealed them to prevent Allied troops from discovering secret facilities. If a train had been hidden inside one of those tunnels, it could remain undetected even after decades of searching. Theory 2. The train may have been destroyed during the final battles of the war. In early 1945, the region around Breslau was a major combat zone. Soviet forces were advancing rapidly. Railway lines were frequently bombed or sabotaged. It is possible the train was attacked while traveling through the mountains. If explosives or ammunition were part of the cargo, the resulting explosion could have destroyed the train completely. Some researchers believe this may explain why no physical evidence has ever been discovered. However, critics of this theory argue that such a large explosion would likely have been recorded by witnesses. No confirmed wartime reports describe a train explosion in the exact area where the treasure train is believed to have vanished. Theory 3. The train never existed. Some historians believe the entire story may simply be a legend. During the chaos of the final months of the war, rumors spread quickly. Many trains carrying military supplies and valuables moved through Germany at that time. It is possible that a normal transport train was mistaken for a secret treasure train. Over time, the story may have grown more dramatic as it was repeated by different people. Without clear wartime documents proving the train existed, skeptics argue that the legend may simply be a myth. Yet others point out that many Nazi records were destroyed before the end of the war. The absence of documentation does not necessarily prove the train never existed.
Theory 4. The treasure was removed. Another possibility is that the train existed but was discovered shortly after the war ended. If Soviet forces found the train inside a tunnel, they might have secretly removed the treasure. Because the Soviet Union controlled the region immediately after the war, any discoveries could have been classified. Some researchers believe Soviet military units may have recovered valuable items from underground tunnels and transported them back to Moscow. However, there is very little concrete evidence supporting this theory. No official Soviet documents describing such a discovery have ever been released. Still, the secrecy of the early Cold War era leaves room for speculation. The dangerous possibility. Some experts warn that if the train exists, it could still be extremely dangerous.
During the final weeks of the war, German engineers sometimes protected secret locations with explosives. Mines or booby traps might have been placed inside tunnels to prevent enemy forces from entering. There are also rumors that chemical weapons or hazardous materials may have been stored on the train. If these stories were true, opening a sealed tunnel without careful preparation could be extremely risky. Because of these concerns, authorities have always insisted that any excavation must be conducted slowly and safely. Modern technology and new searches. Today, new technologies offer possibilities that were unimaginable decades ago. Advanced geological scanners can map underground structures in great detail. Satellite imaging can detect unusual shapes beneath the surface. Robotic exploration devices can enter tunnels that are too dangerous for humans. Researchers hope that these technologies might eventually solve the mystery. Several exploration teams continue studying the mountains of Lower Silesia. Each new discovery brings the possibility that the truth might finally be revealed. The enduring mystery. The legend of the Nazi gold train remains one of the most fascinating unsolved mysteries of World War II. If the train truly exists, it could contain priceless artwork, stolen gold, and historical documents from the final days of the Third Reich. But even if the train is never found, the story itself has become part of the region's history. It reminds us of the chaos and secrecy that surrounded the final collapse of Nazi Germany, a time when trains carrying unknown cargo disappeared into the darkness, and when the secrets of a collapsing empire were hidden beneath mountains and tunnels. Perhaps one day, new technology or a lucky discovery will finally reveal the truth. Until then, the mystery of the Nazi train that vanished with Hitler's gold continues to capture the imagination of historians and treasure hunters around the world.